A switch was flicked probably right after gold recovered after the coronavirus impact was first felt, because when coronavirus in March, when it was just sort of slamming international markets, gold also took a hit, although it was temporary. And then when that started recovering and the market understood, like, man, I mean, they're printing money, and gold value is going up. To answer your question, capital is flowing now. And I've really never seen it like this. I'm getting emails from the same stockbroker every day with a financing, probably 4 or 5 a week. So there's lots of financings happening right now.
Welcome back to Liberty and Finance. We have a first-time visitor today. Jim Paterson is the co-founder of Discovery Group and the CEO of ValOre Metals Corp. He joins us this first time. Jim, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Dunnigan. Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
We wanted to have you on because following the Sprott Natural Resources Symposium that we participated in last month, we've had a lot of interest from our subscribers in finding out more about the entire life cycle of precious metals. We've focused typically on the bullion, availability, supply, price, action, prospects, future, that sort of thing. But you're involved in the production, the exploration and production of metals at the very beginning of that supply chain, at the beginning of that life cycle. So we wanted to have you come on and talk to us about that and educate us a bit about what's going on there. But first, I just wanted to get a chance to ask you personally, how does someone grow up to be a treasure hunter professionally? Because a lot of us started out that way as kids thinking that would be a cool career to get into, but you're actually living the dream. So can you tell us how you got into that?
Yeah, I fell into it by accident through a friend of mine. His father was the chairman and CEO of a publicly listed company that was traded on the Amex and the Toronto Stock Exchange, copper developer. And that was my first job in the industry. I was investor relations. So I dialed for dollars in a closet, calling U.S. stockbrokers, talking to them about how great our company was. And just through attrition, I stayed in the industry and kind of jumped around a little bit in terms of my roles, but landed with a gentleman named John Robbins, who I still work with to this day. And that was about in 2002. So effectively, my role started out as a marketing role. And then in about 2008, I listed my first public company through an IPO and have been an executive since then. But what's really great about our business is that it's a people business, and we get to travel a lot, go to different projects, go to different financial centers. So we're treasure hunting not only for gold and platinum and palladium, uranium, diamonds, but also new relationships that will provide capital to us as we do the front end, as you said, of the mining sector. So that's exploration and discovery and development, not production.
Then maybe you can talk to us about what your overall view is of the metals ecosystem currently, because in the context of what you're doing, you're talking about the value proposition, the business prospects, the return on investment, that kind of thing. So that's all within a context of what the outlook is, what you foresee in the road ahead as far as the final pricing of the product, because that's going to affect how worthwhile it is going after it and how much you're going to invest. People are willing to invest or should be willing to invest in going after it. So could you give us maybe in a nutshell your belief, your opinion, your studied view of the precious metals markets going forward and where you see the industry being affected as well?
Well, my study view is definitely a biased one, because obviously we do better as an industry when the prices of the commodities go up. There's a lot more investor interest. So the jury's still out on a lot of the sort of industrial, the major metals that drive the economy that would go into the infrastructure of building economies. But as far as precious metals, I don't know. I mean, a stack of dollar bills that would reach to the moon has just been printed in the last 3 months. And a corresponding amount of gold was not mined from the ground. So the value of gold in all currencies, not just the U.S. currency, we think will maintain its value while those currencies lose value against gold. That's my opinion. And if that is the case, then precious metals become even more precious. And those companies that are chasing or advancing exploration projects, development projects, making discoveries in precious metals will get a lot of attention from investors. That's my idea. As far as copper and or zinc and or uranium, those things are a different beast, although they are lumped in with, all metals are lumped in. When there's a hot gold market and there's a lot of money chasing gold deals, you tend to get a massive trickle down effect where the other metals as well attract more capital as well. So the financing environment for those projects goes up quite a bit, or it gets quite a bit better.
I'm gonna put you on the spot here with a tough question, because one analyst that I spoke with was highly praising the Discovery Group, which is, you're a co-founder of that group, but also described ValOre Metals as the weak sister. And I'd like you to have a chance to give us the evidence or the reasons that someone should not hold that opinion. Why should someone see ValOre Metals as strongly as you see it?
Firstly, I'm very hurt by that comment, and I would like that analyst's home address, please. No, I'm joking. I think that it's not without its reality. ValOre used to be called Kivalliq Energy, and Kivalliq was 100% focused on uranium. We changed the name and consolidated the shares and acquired a PG project in Brazil last year. So, we are affected, even if we are a group that has had significant success. We are slaves somewhat to the individual commodities in terms of their pricing. So when you have something like happen with uranium markets or the nuclear fuel markets after the earthquake caused a tsunami in Japan, it took down their entire nuclear fleet. They shut it down, and it dropped the price of uranium significantly, and interest in that sector dropped significantly. So absolutely, there was certainly ramifications of that, because interest levels in uranium projects went down significantly. So that is not untrue. I wouldn't say we're the weak sister. I would say that it hasn't been without its challenges since we formed the company in 2008. But that is the beauty of the group. We despite ups and downs in certain commodity prices, we're always able to attract really good technical people. We have very strong support from the financial community, including retail investors and institutional investors. So they may have a varying opinion about certain companies within the group, but they always have a good impression of the group, because they know we're off trying to, like right now, all the companies in Discovery Group are allocating capital to advance their projects through exploration or discovery to add value. So we're not sitting on our hands, and ValOre is, fits that bill as well. We're actively trying to advance the company. So I'm not sure. You can't argue with someone's opinion if you don't know what drove that opinion, the basis, and why specifically he said that. But I'm sure that it has its merits.
One of the things you just touched on, though, is something I want to dig in a little deeper. No pun intended. Is you mentioned ongoing exploration and discovery, investment in exploration and discovery, because we've had guests on our show over the past year who've said that there's been a dearth of exploration and discovery over the past decade, where metals prices had been admittedly down significantly from the 2011 highs. For the last decade, we've been quite a bit lower in metals prices, and that some of the value proposition was not as compelling for people to be investing a lot. Some producers had to just do cash operations and not really do a lot of acquisitions, that kind of thing. Do you see that changing now, not only for Discovery Group, but for others in the industry, because you're going ahead and investing in exploration and discovery? So could you address that? Is this the right time to be doing that, and how does that playing out for you?
Well, it is our belief that if the capital is properly allocated and discoveries are made or advancements in a project are made due to exploration, you add value. So it's always the right time to be doing it. However, it isn't reflected always in market cap or market appreciation, because sometimes there's just nobody who's interested, or very few people that are interested. One person who's highly interested in market downturns is Rick Rule. He's always someone you can call, and if the deal is right, he's got money to cut checks to advance exploration projects. And then there's other times when someone like Rick is not so lonely, and there's lots of people investing in the space, and he probably becomes less aggressive at times of great ebullience in the marketplace. A switch was flicked probably right after gold recovered after the coronavirus impact was first felt, because when coronavirus in March, when it was just sort of slamming international markets, gold also took a hit, although it was temporary. And then when that started recovering and the market understood, like, man, they're printing money, and gold value is going up. To answer your question, capital is flowing now. And I've really never seen it like this. I'm getting emails from the same stockbroker every day with a financing, probably 4 or 5 a week. So there's lots of financings happening right now. That isn't necessarily good, because in times of huge inflows of capital, very stupid projects get financed. And management teams that don't maybe merit the money are getting money to advance projects that really don't warrant exploration at all. But there's just all this competition coming in because there's so much money flowing into the sector. So anyone's really getting financed at this point. So yeah, I still think you have to be pretty careful. You have to be really careful when in bull markets, more so than in bear markets. In bear markets, I think you'll probably make less mistakes than in bull markets. And we're entering into probably the mother of all gold bull markets.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are maybe counting on that, thinking that even if they take a less diligent approach, they'll probably get to ride with the major trend. But as you point out, you can do a lot better than just riding with the major trend if you choose wisely. So that's fair. Why should people consider Discovery Group or ValOre as far as the reputation and success track record of the management team, et cetera?
Well, I think you have to look at the track record of the group. I mean, within the last few years, we've been involved with some serious transactions that prove that we can take a concept or an idea and commercialize it. And I think it's much more easily said than done in the mining sector. In 2016, it rained money in our group because a company in our group called Kaminak was sold to Goldcorp for over $500 million. And the market generally hadn't really come back yet. So to have a big win like that at that time was really advantageous for us. And so what we decided was that we were going to sort of double down. When Goldcorp took over Kaminak, we had the choice. We could either let the lease go and Goldcorp would be on the hook for it, or we could sublet the entire floor of this office building in Vancouver and sort of rebuild and go after it. And we chose to do that. So we kind of doubled down, brought exciting companies into the group, one of them being a company called Great Bear Resources. And Great Bear was less than 5 million market cap Canadian at that time when they joined our group. They almost hit $1 billion market cap 3 months ago. And that was all through the technical strength of that group that we attracted to join us. And it was all through gold exploration in Ontario. So that's just, a couple of different examples of how, you get lucky several times. What happens is you really attract good people. And then those really good people tend to attract great projects, they attract capital, attract credibility, and they generate success.
I noticed in some of the research that I've been doing, you've also attracted some investments from some significant investors along the way.
There's been some big ones, yeah, for sure. In particular, there's a company in Discovery Group called Bluestone, and Bluestone was a company that had a negative working capital position, a couple $100,000. It was just basically a broken TSX Venture listed shell. And after the deal where Goldcorp bought Kaminak, John Robbins, who is the chair of Kaminak, was also the chair and president, CEO, and chief bottle washer of Bluestone. He had a conversation, a pretty good dialogue with Goldcorp, and they agreed to give him the opportunity to purchase an asset from them using Bluestone as the vehicle. But if you looked at the balance sheet of Bluestone, no major mining company in their right mind would sell the asset to that little company. But because of the credibility of Discovery Group and John's credibility, we were able to use that as the entity to purchase it. And we were able to attract the Lundin family and raise almost $82 million for that transaction. And that project has attracted really good people. So we have that company is a fully functioning board, a very strong board of directors, a very strong management team, has raised over $100 million, has generated a feasibility study, and is barreling towards production. Probably in the next few years, that'll be producing gold at nameplate capacity. And that all sort of started because of the relationship that members of our discovery group had with the guys at Gold Corp and our reputation. So stranger things can happen and exciting things can happen because of the group.
You've mentioned Rick Rule a couple of times. He was basically our overall host at the Sprott 2020 Natural Resources Symposium a month ago, and he has very respectful things to say about Discovery Group. He really thinks you guys are doing a good job with that, and that's one of the reasons we wanted to have you on to talk about that. For people who are unfamiliar, because a lot of our viewers are familiar with preparedness, also familiar with sound money, gold and silver, that sort of thing, bullion, investing and storage of wealth, protecting your wealth against fiat and debt. But they may be unfamiliar with how to participate in mining stocks. And that's been something that like Rick Rule mentioned, that he said, yeah, have a cash liquidity reserve, have a bullion liquidity reserve, and then if you still can, invest in mining companies, whether it's royalty and streaming companies or whether if there are very specific junior miners that he recommends. So can you talk to us about how people who are wanting to get started in this could dip a toe in the water of starting to invest in junior miners or exploration companies so that they have a starting point? Where can they get started?
Depends on where they are. If they were in Canada, I would recommend that they talk to a broker who's very seasoned, let's say. And there are collections of those brokers in places like Toronto or Vancouver, and many different places outside of those city centers, and where the stockbrokers have many decades of experience in this game, in this arena. And I think you really want someone who knows what they're doing. I think you want someone who's got access to capital and access to deal flow and financings. And, happy to recommend people in Calgary, Toronto, Vancouver, anybody if they want to contact me directly.
All right, so we'll make sure and put your contact info in the description of this video. So that's point number one. If you're a Canadian citizen and you want to get some referrals to some recommended brokers who'd be really knowledgeable in this space, I'll give your email or contact info in the description.
Well, that would be Canadian or European. The U.S. investors is a slightly different beast because the SEC makes it pretty challenging to work with the Canadian broker unless they're U.S. licensed. However, Mr. Rule and his organization are great people to talk to if you want to invest in those. And of course, your listeners would know Rick. And so the Sprott organization would be able to handle their business quite easily in the United States or Canada for that matter.
Okay.
But and maybe something else. Maybe what I'll do is over the next week or so, I could put together different websites I look at and different ways I go about sort of looking on a day-to-day basis on where value is and what things to look at. Because there's some really highly developed service providers that have grown around the junior mining sector. So there are certain websites you can go to on a daily basis and see which financings have happened. Is there a warrant? Can you contact the company directly to participate in the financing? There are websites you can go to. If you look at a particular mineral deposit, you can really get a good visual look at how it's drilled and how it all sticks together. Those are just two examples of service providers that have grown up in Vancouver around the thousands of junior mining companies that exist there and have developed really good tools for investors to discern between the companies. So there are probably 5 or 10. We'll put our heads together and think about that.
Excellent.
And of course, there's also money managers, and not very many. There's only a few left who specifically invest in junior mining stocks. And if they are still in business now, right when all this bull market has started, but if they're established, it means they're very good because they've actually stood the test of time.
Yeah, we're coming out of a tough decade for sure.
Yeah.
We have some questions that have been submitted by viewers ahead of your arrival here. Roger Kromerick asks, why don't you make Discovery Group a TSX listed company so that everyone can invest in the companies you have invested in?
Well, Discovery Group is more of it's just an alliance, and we're not an entity. We're not the boss of 8 or 9 public companies. That is not how we run things. We invite people, really good people, to join the group, and generally they're in the leadership position in public companies, and they have their own board of directors and they have their own management teams, and we share resources as much as possible. But when they grow to a certain size, they're doing their own thing, and they have their own shareholder bases. So we're not dictating those. So that's not really the purpose of Discovery Group. Is not to be a fund. And we have our own tastes. Some of us like gold more than uranium, or early stage, like just pure grassroots exploration over development stories or production. And we know investors have the same thing. So we really just focus on the people, and then make sure those people have expertise wherever their project or projects might be, and whichever commodity they might be or stage of development. Because in all of those cases, in terms of country risk, permitting risk, development risk, commodity risk, there are experts. And you can't be an expert in all fields. Or if you're an expert in all fields, you're probably pretty diluted. And I think that's the whole point of the group, that we share common vision, but the individual public companies run themselves.
A follow-up question by the same viewers is, Elemental Royalties is the newest company in your group. Can you elaborate on this?
Yeah, we were introduced to the management team of this company, and over time we continued to talk with them, and they were considering listing on Venture Exchange. And so we felt like we shared principles, and it would be quite exciting to work with a group like theirs. So we kind of pitched the idea that they could join the group and become part of our alliance, and we could share some resources that would help them communicate with the North American audience and the contacts we have here. Elemental has projects globally. They have royalties on mines operating globally. They're choosing to kind of focus on the North American market for their investors. And we have a beachhead. We kind of provide a beachhead for them in Vancouver, North America. And John Robbins joined the board, and I'm an advisor to that company. And it just gives us exposure to a really exciting element of, an aspect of the mining sector, which is the royalty companies. We had not had one before.
You've mentioned different stages at the early life cycle of metals, and you mentioned just now geographic distribution. That kind of plays into the question I wanted to ask you about diversity. When people start to invest, and again, a lot of our viewers may be just tiptoeing into this idea of investing in mining, the mining industry in general, rather than just picking out one specific company, you're talking about the Discovery Group has within its umbrella a diversity of different life cycle stages and geographies represented. Can you talk to us about that diversification that's within your group?
Sure. We've got projects from northern Canada all the way down to Brazil. And then as far as Elemental, there are projects in Australia and Africa and Latin America as well. So we have, other than Elemental, our group doesn't have exposure in Africa. Now, Elemental's brain trust is in London, which, in my belief, London has a greater affinity to this, sort of similar time zones, and they tend to get a lot of the African projects financed via the exchanges in London. So there's a lot more expertise in London on Africa and Europe than there would be, let's say, in Vancouver. And in Vancouver and Toronto, we tend to focus sort of from northern Canada down to the tip of Argentina. Our group specifically has had a lot of experience in northern Canada. As far as commodity diversification, really, we're kind of a lightning rod. So if, let's say, a private group, and this has actually recently happened, where a private group who is an expert at a certain type of deposit or mining, but they're private and they don't have a lot of access to capital, they might get introduced to us, and they may have a meeting with us, and they might say, this is the country that we specialize in, the type of deposit model, and here is our list of projects we've been involved with that would demonstrate that they're highly specialized, and the chances that they will succeed at that venture will increase dramatically. That's the kind of group we want to work with too, because we can structure some sort of public company around that, around them effectively, and their project, their expertise. And that's happened several times, and you'll probably see that in the next year or so in Discovery Group, where I'm alluding to a secret project, but it'll come. And these things happen to us where just because of we're out there, we're marketing, we're going to meetings, we're talking to bankers, and so when ideas come, they think of us, which is great. So we get to choose, and we get really high quality deal flow. The big thing is we just get really good people that are coming to work with us, and that always breeds more success.
So again, your advice to a new entrant, somebody who maybe hasn't even ever before invested in junior miners or exploration companies, that sort of thing, or royalty and streaming. You mentioned they could connect with a Canadian broker who's very experienced and seasoned in the space. They could talk to Sprott, for example, through Rick Rule and his group of advisors there. Any other specific ideas for learning on the part of someone who's a new investor into this space?
Well, this is what I personally do when somebody tells me about some interesting opportunity, some investment opportunity. I just go to the website and look at the people. I spend like 20 minutes looking at their biographies, and I think everyone should be able to do that. I mean, if you're looking at the board of directors and the management team, and there seems to be absolutely no connection between their expertise and their project, why the heck are you investing in them? Mm-hmm. Because you're not going to be in the field making the decisions. You can't be a Sunday morning or Monday morning quarterback. They're the ones who have to be making the decisions in the field with respect to commodity pricing or financings or all these decisions that are happening. And you want them to have seen these things before. Mm-hmm. When this happens, this is how it worked for me in the past, and I can deal with it in this way. So I think really the experience level of the board and the management team is critical, and really taking it much further than that is, to take a small investment, I don't think it's necessary. I mean, you're not going to really know the project is good based upon a sort of a one-dimensional map on a PowerPoint slide for a project in Argentina. How can you know that? I mean, the management team should be making the decision, so you're backing them.
Yeah, that's something else that Rick Rule has often talked about is proven performers. And he says, in the geology and discovery business, he said there's a lot of education and judgment involved. There's also some luck. But he says once you get someone who's getting a recurring pattern of proven performance, there's more than luck going on, that success breeds further evidence that those people are using seasoned judgment, that they're getting the right input from the right people, that they're then turning around and relying on the right people and the right model and context to make their good decisions. So why should people have confidence in the management teams that are running either ValOre or the other members of Discovery Group?
Well, we brag about how great we are on the website. You can go look at that in terms of Discovery Group. There's lots of transactions and deals that sort of show why we have a good track record. I mean, what generated that though was years of experience and being able to run large scale exploration programs, which I can assure you is no small feat. You got 60 people in a camp near the Arctic Circle, and 3 choppers coming in and out, 4 or 5 rigs, and there's a lot happening. So the people that are running those kinds of operations are highly skilled and competent. And when you kind of match that or marry that with the right nose for geology, wherein you're in the right area, you're in prospective terrain, and you're running the programs efficiently and effectively, and you make a discovery and you advance it to a point where a major mining company just thinks they have to have it. If you've done that several times, I think that stands to reason that you're a pretty competent group. As far as ValOre goes, we have if you look through some of the bios of our directors, there's a variety of experience, but that variety demonstrates success in M&A, in financing, in managing large-scale exploration programs, in making discoveries, in dealing with different political jurisdictions. For example, in Brazil, we're just now starting to really build our Brazilian footprint. In terms of our director, Luis Azevedo, he's a geologist and a lawyer. He's very connected with mining and politics in Brazil. And he's been a huge help for us to start to kind of build our contact network down there. And then on a project level, we're just putting on a bit of a hiring process to get very talented, young, excellent communicators and experienced geologists on site. So we're building that expertise right now, and it's going quite well. But really, I think that's our strength that we have as a group, where we really recognize the differences between jurisdictions. Just because, like, if you say, well, I speak Spanish, so I should be able to operate anywhere in South America, that's kind of a big oversight. Every country is very different, yeah. And surprising nuances would only be observable or recognizable to someone with some experience in that area. Of course, in Brazil, they speak Portuguese.
That's what I was going to say, Brazilian Portuguese. In fact, I used to work for a Fortune 100 company and was invited to take a business trip down there. And they said, how's your foreign language skills? And I started naming ones that I had. And they said, well, how about Portuguese? I said, no. Well, specifically, we're looking for Northern Brazilian Portuguese. And it's like, oh, my gosh.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's very true. And, even from Lisbon, Portugal to Rio, to northern Brazil, the accents and just patterns of speeches are very different, and the attitudes of the people are different. So yeah, you know what? You just can't assume. You just have to learn through experience, and that's kind of, I think, what our group has picked up over the last 20 to 25 years. That each individual jurisdiction requires its own expertise, so you better find it.
We have a lot of our viewers, again, are preparedness minded. That's how we started this whole channel. And they're thinking about the next step. What's coming up next? Some people seeing this big bull market in precious metals are anticipating, and as you mentioned, the unbridled fiat currency printing by the central banks are anticipating that the bill is going to come due at some point, and there's going to have to be higher taxes. So this question is about taxes and how they affect the mining industry. 495 says, how are precious metal mining companies taxed, and do you foresee more taxation as the financial apocalypse sets in and precious metals prices really take off?
Well, I guess the answer would be yes. I don't see that taxes anywhere in the world are going to go down. That's unfortunate. I don't think government control will be reduced, unfortunately. I think that but the question is depends. I mean, where are they? Where are these precious metals miners projects located? So in terms of what our group does, Bluestone is moving its project into production, but the other companies in our group are really focused on exploration. And so the thing about exploration and development is it costs money. You're not generating margin or profits from it, but they're not taxed. And what we're looking for, and you may say, well, how do you run a business like that? Well, you raise equity capital, and your investors are taking a leap of faith that you'll be able to get that project to a point where you'll be able to sell the project on to a bigger company that has multiple mining operations, and then your investors would be subject to a capital gain. But the actual company itself wouldn't be subject to taxes on production until it does produce. But to answer your viewer's question, unfortunately, I believe that based upon just unrelenting money printing and basically taking care of everybody. So, cutting a check for everybody on a weekly basis.
Talking about the government, yeah.
It's unsustainable, and the chickens will come home to roost, and they're gonna need to tax people more, and so that's what's going to happen. But I think every jurisdiction is different. So some jurisdictions are more disciplined than others. And those ones will probably have less of a punitive tax regime.
Before I ask you a final question, I wanted to see if there's anything that you would like to share about a specific project or a specific most promising aspect of one of the companies within Discovery Group that you would really like to draw the attention of our viewers to check into further.
Well, I'm highly biased towards ValOre right now. I'm the chairman and CEO. I'm a manager of that company. I have tremendous accountability to that company, and I put a lot of our own money into that, financing the company. What recently happened there was that I did advance some money in the form of a loan so that we wouldn't have to finance at a lower price, but we would be able to go out and commence our exploration program. And the big question mark for many investors in this COVID time was, if we give you equity capital, and I didn't want to be in a position where I'd be taking in equity dollars and then giving the unfortunate news to the investors that due to COVID, we weren't able to drill. So in fact, that didn't happen. Right now, we're drilling and things are going, in terms of productivity down there, spectacularly well. There's no issues whatsoever. We have very strict safety protocols, but the program's running as you would expect. And so, and the news flow is about to start on ValOre on our Paterson project. So that I'm quite proud of, because we're able to kind of prove to the market that we're able to drill sort of unfettered in Brazil, and now the results will start to flow. But as far as the group goes, it's so dynamic that at any point, one of the companies in the group or multiple companies in the group, because they're investing in exploration, your fate can change on the turn of a dime type thing, where one drill hole can add so much value. Great Bear is a great example of that. But that, all the other companies in our group right now are actually running exploration programs, and fairly big ones. So, they're shooting at targets that could add a lot of value. I'd encourage, go to discovergroup.ca, sign up, and communicate with us. We've got a great team of people that can talk to you and give you the information you need. But before we go, I'd like to, because this will go to several thousand people, hopefully, this sort of interview on our side. And many of them would never think about it, but they wouldn't know how to get started in buying bullion or precious metals, the actual physical precious metal. How can you, if you could simplify it, dumb it down for guys like me, but how would you get started?
There's many ways. The way that I got involved with, after having seen testimonials and been around for several years, running my channel for almost a decade now, and talked to several people who've purchased metals through different routes, the way that I've learned the most about now is through Miles Franklin Precious Metals Investments. They're a 30-year-old company, family-owned, father and son who started it, and the son, Andy Schechtman, is the CEO. He's still running the company. His dad, David Schechtman, is still involved. But the one way to do that is to look at your goals, and if you're in your stage of life, that sort of thing. And for people who are approaching us at this time, the most common things that they're looking to do is either to protect money that they currently have that was sitting in either like a 401k or IRA, which are the U.S. retirement plans, or savings, or even in stocks or bonds, because people are getting really concerned about the huge risk and the bubble that's been inflated underneath both the equities markets, the debt bond market, and even after the global financial collapse of 2008, the Dodd-Frank Act that was passed in 2010 in the U.S. changes the legal status of depositors of banks to being an unsecured creditor of the bank. So even when people think they have money in a savings account, or even things that are in a safe deposit box in the bank, all of that is just subject to bail-in by the banks. Basically, it's property of the banks. Your deposits are property of the banks, and you can stand in line behind all the other creditors since you're an unsecured creditor of the bank. So people have been reaching out to us because they're trying to protect their retirement, they're trying to protect their savings, and so when they want to acquire physical gold and silver or platinum, typically, they either want it for their personal possession, which is great, or they want it professionally vault stored, which is also great, and some people do both. That's probably becoming the most common option, is having a significant portion of their metals stored and then another portion shipped directly to them. And so we're able to do that for both clients all over the world, but Canada and the U.S. for sure. And typically, if it's a Canadian client who wants to start acquiring physical metals, we can either ship them from the U.S. to them, and the shipping rates are not too bad. And also, there are some import taxes on certain types of metals in the Canadian side they need to be aware of. Or we can have them shipped directly from the Royal Canadian Mint in larger quantities for certain size orders. And we have a special relationship with Brinks of Canada in Vancouver and Toronto and Montreal for either segregated vault storage where your stuff is going to be in its own separate area, not commingled with anybody else's, so there's no question of do they really have your materials, or are no rehypothecation. We're going to be talking later this week with a big interview coming out exposing some risks of that in some other programs, but ours is completely segregated in your own storage. Or in the U.S., for U.S. customers, we can also ship directly to them or store for them in brinks of either Los Angeles, Salt Lake City, or JFK, or the Dakota Depository in North Dakota. But it all starts with a phone call to a broker. So if people want to go to milesfranklin.com and look under contact, they can scroll down, they'll find me, Dunnigan Kaiser, and my associate Kaiser Johnson. Our phone numbers are there, our emails are there, or they can email us at libertyandfinance@protonmail.com. That's a secure and private email server system in Switzerland and protects their privacy, and we can call them back and talk about their stage of what they're trying to accomplish, how to do that. Most people, it's quite straightforward. They decide what they want to accomplish. If they want to purchase gold or silver or platinum or some blend of the three, we give them the current price based on the current spot prices and the current premiums. They make their decision. We lock in the deal for them. Once it's locked, it's locked. And then they send in payment either by personal check or bank wire or a one-time electronic deposit that we can pull. And as soon as their funds are cleared and settled, we go ahead and package and ship their metals. And they receive them either personally at their whatever address they told us to ship it to. Some people have us shipped to a P.O. box for added privacy on their part, or directly to their vault. And there's also retirement plans you can open up to get. You can have a precious metals retirement plan and then roll over funds from your existing retirement plan into that one and have the metals held for you under a custodian in a depository and completely following all of the IRS guidelines. So there's several different options.
Is that available in Canada as well?
Now, the retirement plan has a different approach in Canada that we can talk more about if people have an interest in that. And what I was describing was the U.S., but certainly we can ship to individuals' residence or P.O. box or vault storage in Canada for Canadian customers.
But to give people a bit of a light at the end of the tunnel, if they were to walk this process through, it would be if they were to go to your website, go to the website, click on your contact information, it would be similar to opening up a brokerage account? They
don't even have to open an account. They can just inquire as to what's available at what price and explain their situation. We'll provide them with pricing and availability that's going to beat generally any other listed broker out there, and they make their decision and they make their purchase and make their payment and receive their metals. They don't even need to. In fact, that's one of the distinctions from Miles Franklin. Unlike some other very large online names, Miles Franklin has taken down several years ago their online storefront because there were some pretty high-profile data breaches at other brokers, never with Miles Franklin. But we realize that privacy is one of the reasons that people get into precious metals as well. They're just not comfortable with every transaction being tracked and in the system. So by doing it, not having any client-facing information on the website, it completely takes us basically off the grid in terms of the potential for those data breaches that other dealers can be subject to. So if people have a specific interest in talking about their special needs and getting some direct interaction with someone who can understand what their goals are they're trying to achieve, getting complete privacy to where their information is not going to be hackable because it's not exposed to the web, and then thirdly, being able to get a price that's going to meet or beat any other price that they can find, then they should reach out to Miles Franklin at milesfranklin.com, or you can come directly to libertyandfinance.com under our precious metals page and reach us there.
And they can pay with a credit card, just like they're going to
We can take an authorization hold on a credit card, but the main payment for the order is either by personal check or by electronic payment or by sending a bank wire.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Sorry, I got a little bit long-winded there, but I think it's something we haven't explained sufficiently, so I really appreciate you inviting that explanation. I'm sure it answers some questions people have.
Well, it sounds to me like it really is. It's the same as making any other kind of purchase. So really, online purchase. So I think people shouldn't be nervous about it.
Right, and that's the other thing is people have really lost. We've lost as a culture the whole idea of holding precious metals. A very, very small percentage of the population actually holds precious metals, but there are some very compelling reasons to do so. And it's also if you do receive shipment directly to you, it comes in a vanilla unmarked box. It doesn't say anything about precious metals at all on the outside of the box, so nobody's going to know what you're receiving.
Great. Privacy is key.
Yep. Even the shippers, it's kind of interesting. Very, very clever process used for insuring. All of our shipments are insured, but they're not insured to the shipper for full value. They're insured to the shipper for a nominal value that makes sure that they get special handling and they don't get mixed up in the Amazon stream. But then there's separate insurance from Lloyd's of London to the full value that the shipper is not even aware of. So in a sense, there's privacy all the way at every layer, including the people who are handling your package in the shipping along the way aren't even aware of its value.
We just know it's heavy.
It can be. Usually for silver shipments tend to be the heavy ones. I'm always delighted when people are getting that big of a step into silver that it becomes like receiving a 40-pound monster box of silver is significant. But it's there's plenty of other things that ship that have some weight to them, whether it's batteries or plumbing parts or things like that. So it's not that out of the ordinary. But gold or platinum, you can get so much value in a few ounces of that it's a very lightweight, small package that comes, and you can protect a lot of your funds in a very small, lightweight, and easily storable space through either gold or platinum. And platinum has a particularly compelling value story at this time because historically it's traded at a premium to gold, but just for the past several months has been sharply less than gold. So it's one of those value stories similar to what silver has right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. It doesn't have the following that silver does, though, I don't think, but certainly has the value.
Well, maybe that's another contrarian point in its favor. So,
yeah.
Jim, any last thoughts about Discovery Group or ValOre that I forgot to ask you that you'd like our viewers to take with them?
No, I hope that I've transmuted something positive. I hope that they're interested in kind of connecting with us and seeing how they may be involved with what we're up to. And I really thank you for the opportunity of being on your show.
Sure. And now, again, let's reiterate the contact info. We'll put it in the description, but if people want to find out more about Discovery Group specifically, they should go to
discoverygroup.ca.
All right. Jim Paterson, CEO of ValOre and co-founder of Discovery Group. Thank you for joining us this first time on Liberty and Finance.
I hope to come back. Thanks, Dunnigan.
If you've decided that now is the right time for you to protect your family's financial future by acquiring physical precious metals, gold and silver, I'm delighted to let you know that I have now become a licensed dealer's representative for Miles Franklin, one of the oldest and most trusted names in bullion dealerships. And we can provide you with physical delivery to your personal possession or to professional vault storage or precious metals IRAs. Just email me at libertyandfinance@protonmail.com, and please include your name and phone number in your email to libertyandfinance@protonmail.com. We'll get right back with you and find out how to best meet your needs so that you can either begin or increase your acquisition of physical precious metals now and protect your family's future starting today.